Welcome to Beyond the Darkness, a podcast by the Evie Effect. Here, we hold space for each other, have real conversations, and find hope in everybody's story. I'm your host, Jessica Domingos, and we're glad you're here. Today, my guest is Allison Sharp.
Call me Allie.
Allie. Who, luckily enough, ironically, is my daughter. So I'm really happy to have her on today. Thank you for being here, Allie.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
We have spent a lot of time together recently.
Yes, we certainly have.
Working on a project.
Happily, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good thing we get along.
Yeah, it is a good thing we get along.
Best of friends.
99.9% of the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got to butt heads just to, make it interesting.
You got to keep it real. But we've done a lot of talking over the past couple days and talked about what we want to talk about today. And the theme that we decided was starting over. And you've had to start over a lot in your life with a lot of different things.
This is true.
So I would love to explore that with you today. And is there a certain place you'd like to start?
Well, I think about, where do I start, right? And I continue to start over. So where do I start over, or which part of my life do I want to start with? And of course, the nonprofit that you guys run and that this podcast is sponsoring. I mean, it's about the loss of my sister. Yeah. So I feel like everything really changed for me once that happened. You're just really never the same. So, and honestly, I'm better now than I ever have been because I had the opportunity to self-reflect after that, through this nonprofit, through the process of meeting all of these wonderful people in the mental health space and then doing my work. So it really, showed me a mirror to myself at that point, because it forced mental health professionalism on me. And so I'm healthier in that aspect in the mental health space. So I feel like maybe starting there would be good.
Yeah. So when we lost Evie, Evie took her own life, she was 12 years old, and you were struggling with suicidal thoughts at the same time she was. So that was so hard for that to happen when you were struggling yourself. What was that like for you? Because I think it scared you out of not wanting to do that anymore. Is that true?
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, honestly, because it's an idea in your head, right? It doesn't happen to you or it's not real until it's in front of you, right? So you've imagined what that life would be like for your people, for yourself after. Is there a life after life, right? And then to be able to actually see what it's like for your family and, experience yourself that loss too.
Right.
It really just, it makes it real. And it wasn't something that I was prepared for, but I wasn't surprised. I think at that point, I had imagined it so many times that I wasn't prepared for how real it was going to be, and how I was going to experience my friends and my family and everybody affected. I wasn't prepared for that. That really changed me. But all you think about is, hey, I'm going to be better. I'm going to feel better. And I know that for a lot of people who struggle with feeling like a burden, they think that the people who they're leaving behind would be better without them. Right. And honestly, that is just not the truth.
Right. It's not true.
It's not true.
And it's not something you can prepare for. Who can prepare for losing someone to suicide? That's not something you can prepare for.
Right.
You may be trying to help that person. You may realize they're really struggling and you know that it's a possibility, but there's no way to prepare for that profound loss.
Right.
and that hole that's never going to be filled.
Right.
But that for our whole family was a starting over
Yeah.
with, I think part of it was learning how to grieve together, because we lost her and then COVID hit. And so it was our family. We grieved together because you couldn't go anywhere.
You really couldn't go anywhere. But one thing I, have said over and over and over again as I've like talked about this experience and like what it was like right after, for whatever reason, I feel like our family just jumped into action of choosing, okay, are we going to allow ourselves to go down a spiral, or are we going to lean on one another and join together and,
Right.
pull the tightrope, right? And it was so fast. It was within about 3 days, we all sat down and we were like, okay, we can't let ourselves fall down the cracks.
Right.
And you specifically, before you even dreamed of owning a nonprofit and founding that, you were the one that sat us down and said, this is what we need to do, or we're going to not be okay.
Right.
And we had
I
so
remember
many,
that day.
yeah, we had so many people approaching us, that we had the support and the understanding and the advice given to us of being able to stick together. And I think one thing that we had on our side through the process of starting to grieve is that I have my experiences, before she passed away with my own suicidal ideation and mental health. So did you. So did other people in our family. So it wasn't like we were blindsided with, just any facts or understanding of depression or anything like that. Like I did go to therapy at that point. I still go to therapy. But at that point I was in therapy for my own suicidal ideation. That was when I left school and had to start over, and my plans didn't go as planned,
Right, yeah.
And so that it sent me into a spiral. So I, had started going to therapy and seeking mental health. So we right on the trigger, because we had resources, because we had experience, and because we had a special interest in those things already, and we're preparing for that when Evie did pass away, we had that on our side to make good decisions very quickly and be very intentional with it. And I wish that for anybody who was in our situation.
Yeah, being intentional is so important with anything, really. And I think we have been intentional with our grief, of sticking together, pulling together, processing together, and finding purpose through that.
Yeah.
Which personally saved my life. I think we've been very intentional. We intentionally grieved together and processed together, which only brought us closer. And then continuing to find purpose through that and be intentional with the things we do together, that the Evie Effect does for the community, and moving forward. And I've watched you through that process and through some other things that you've gone through, be real intentional about healing. Yes. And you do a lot of research on mental health and how to help yourself. Like you're very intentional about that.
This is very true. Yes.
And one of the things that you told me was, and I can't wait to hear about this, but you realize when you have a pre-thought that triggers you to realize, I'm going to have some suicidal ideation. And you have that pre-thought. And you said to me that I've learned how to recognize that and then stop it so I don't get to that ideation.
Yeah. Basically just the recognition of, okay, hey, where are my thoughts at right now and why? I definitely have picked up mental health and psychology as a special interest. I think we all have within our little circle here and immediate family. But I believe that if I could break down the science behind mental health, or the reasons behind why we think what we think, and what brings us there, then if I could break mental health down logically and emotions down logically, then I can take it from a standpoint of science instead of just emotions. And going off emotions alone, you're really not going to understand why we do what we do. And a lot of that has to do with our upbringing. A lot of it has to do with our personality. A lot of it has to do with our brain chemistry. So learning a lot about myself, and especially going to therapy. I suggest therapy for everybody and their mama. I think that you should go there, and it's not meant to teach you. You're not going to a class on how to fix yourself. You're learning how to teach yourself what's happening to you, how to process things, and how you work. So honestly, for the people out there that believe that they are going to therapy because someone is going to tell them how to feel better, truly it's going somewhere where you can talk to yourself and listen to your inner thoughts in a safe place out loud. And so once I started doing that, once I started to break down my thoughts and, emotions logically, I found that every time I had a quick thought or a deep thought, a longing for wanting to not be here anymore, it was escapism, right? It was, I'm in this situation, I'm trapped in a corner. And that's kind of how I like to describe it now, is I just feel trapped. Okay, well, what's making me feel trapped? Because I just want to escape. I want to escape out of this situation. And I think a lot of people are in that situation right now.
Yeah.
Especially when, you think about COVID, when people are sick, if you're really sick, and you can't escape that, people who are really sick, they have high suicide rates as well. So they want to escape. Or people who right now are dealing, in the social and economic standpoint in our world right now, it's just, and there's so many people who just feel stuck. So I have personally been really fearful for our communities out here, with our everyday folks just trying to get by, and when we all just want to escape.
Right.
And we have to try and find a way to get ourselves out of that mindset.
Right.
Okay. So when, usually if I feel like I'm trapped, I try and identify, well, what is making me feel trapped? What is my main stressor? And then I work backwards. I say, okay, well, how do I stop feeling trapped? And it led me in 2025 to, lose connection with the job that I had. So I quit my job, and I started, of course I did it smart. I had been preparing for a year that it would probably happen, that it would probably be the best thing for me. And it was a year later. And so I decided that I was going to go ahead and stop what I was doing there and restart and become unstuck. And so I have went from having to start over and being forced to start over to intentionally starting over, preparing to starting over, and doing it with confidence.
Right. So you saved up enough money so that you could quit and then follow your heart, follow your passion, and create a life that is beautiful and that is truly authentically you.
Yeah, I would agree. I want to have a life that is beautiful because I think it's beautiful.
Right.
I want to have a life where I feel like I am helping people. I think it just kind of runs in our family a little bit, that we just enjoy working for people. And so I have my talents, and I want to use those talents to help people. And the way that I can help people is I have an artistic vision. Mm-hmm. So if I can do that to assist our communities, I want to set up a way for anybody anywhere in the U.S. to be able to attend free online classes. Art classes, I should say, free online art classes that are live, where I can answer questions live, things of that nature. And you can really, use some skills, because there's a lot of defunding that's happening in our education system right now. And
Right.
that's no surprise to anybody. That's been very, publicly shown. So things like that, or, just as simple as the project that we've been working on, so a life that's beautiful. Yes, because I think it's beautiful personally,
Right.
and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. But if
So
I
tell
can
us about
create
these.
beautiful art, then that would be, a reflection of that as well.
Yeah. So tell us about these free art lessons. It's on TikTok Live. Is that right?
Yeah, they haven't started yet. This is something that's very preliminary. It's something that I want to do. We're collecting donations right now to be able to do so. But that's just one thing. I like to help people. That's one way I can do it. But connecting with people as well. So I've been doing like portraitures and everything of that nature, working with company owners to do founders portraits, just connecting with people. But, it was an example. If you said creating a life that's beautiful, that's how I would like to create a life.
Yeah. I love that. You've had to rebuild from the ground up before.
Yes, multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Actually, you left a really horrible situation on Evie's birthday one year.
I did. This was about like 3 or 4 years ago now. Gosh, doing the math, sometimes it just is daunting.
Yeah.
Geez. Yeah. So after, I should say this. Okay. So when we lost Evie, I was in a very loving relationship with somebody. And at that point, it was what I felt like was the right thing for me and the right thing for that person as well. They helped me through that loss, so that, I was with their mother when I found out that Evie had passed away. I was across the country. This person was across the country in the north of America. And yeah, wow. So they helped me through that, them and their whole family. And eventually I decided to go ahead and move up to the north to be with that person,
Right.
Show a dedication to our future and my love for them. And so I went up there, and unfortunately that ended up not working out. I got married to that person, and I thought that was the right thing. You don't get married to unfortunately get divorced, but
Right.
it was the right thing to do, I thought, in my mind then. And I still think that it was the right thing to do. I truly believe that, based on what had come out of it, I was supposed to learn from that. I'm helping people right now just by existing still because of it, and talking about it now. Like, starting over is okay, and one thing that I still kind of smile at is I'm very lucky that my parents, I have many parents, four different parents, all of them have been married multiple times. So I was not scared at all to start over in that aspect. I had a lot of role models, that there is life after that.
Yeah.
And
well, you had to choose yourself.
I did have to choose myself, and that marriage, it ended up not working out. And it was a hard decision. It was a very hard decision to make, but it was the right decision. I think in all relationships, they're not perfect, but there was some, abuse happening in that relationship, and a lot of different ways. There's emotional, mental, physical abuse, and I won't get into, maybe that's a different podcast, right? What that looks like, and what the intertwinings of relationships and those work. But I was experiencing abuse in that relationship. And so I decided that, despite it being 5 months after the marriage, I was willing to start over.
Yeah.
And, it's a pretty extreme decision.
Yeah.
And it was a decision that I felt no doubt was the right thing for me. And it was very sudden. It was a very sudden decision, which would make sense, I know that it sounds strange to people outside.
Sometimes you got, when you're in that situation, and you're right there in the middle of it, and you feel brave in that moment, that's the day you got to go.
That's true. Yeah. Within 24 hours, I had made an emergency therapy appointment after I had made that decision. So I made the decision to left, and once I was very emotional in that moment. So once I had kind of emotionally brought myself to some type of grounding, where I could communicate effectively, I made an emergency therapy session. And I went that morning, the following morning, bright and early. I came back home, and then I decided to get my stuff together and leave. And about 24 hours later, I was on my way to by myself 2 days. Which is, it's so funny. It just sounds like when your parents is telling you, oh, okay, well, I got to school and you had to trek up 8 miles in the snow and down a hill. And,
But you did.
I was wearing flip-flops the whole time. It was like that. I grabbed everything that was irreplaceable to me by your recommendation, everything that's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And
you're more important than things. Things can be replaced. You can't.
Right.
And
so
it's time to go.
Just, get your stuff. And not everybody has the ability to do this. I was very fortunate. I had somewhere to go. I had a support system. And, if I didn't, I really don't know what I would do. I luckily did not have to go into that situation. I know a lot of women and men do not feel like they have the resources to just up in less than 24 hours make that decision. So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
But I did decide to make that 2-day travel
through an ice storm.
This is what I was saying. It's like this. It's like the parents. It was an ice storm where sheets of ice. But by the time I made it through the storm, I kind of stopped after and got gas, and there was like an inch to 2 inches worth of just ice layered on that car. That was scary. But there was snow. There was at one point there was a tornado warning. Once I got a little farther south, it was wild.
And as you drove into Texas,
and
it started to melt, ice was.
It was
symbolically sliding off your car, like the weight lifting, and
it was wild. But Evie was there with me that day. I talked to her throughout those 2 days in the car. I felt her. I genuinely believe I met an angel that first night.
To protect you.
Yeah. Because there was, I say the first night, but it was the first night away. That's what I mean. But it was like the night in between the 2 days I met an angel, which is an amazing story in itself. And, I know we're talking about starting over. So that in
we can
itself,
talk about
again,
anything you want.
I was like, her and I, we plan to just go into the rabbit holes and start deep diving. But there are, if there are guardian angels out there, figuratively and literally, I had a guardian angel no matter what. And the one thing that I am still just shocked to, like till this day, is the amount of women that came together to support me in that moment. And gosh, there was probably, like 10 to 15 women that were getting updates because it was like, okay, Allie's coming back down,
and people
SHIT went down, she needs help here. And there were like 10 to 15 women like constantly getting updates on, my ETA of where I am. My car was being watched. I was being checked in on. I had people donating to me because I left with $600 in my pocket.
You needed money for gas. You needed to be able to make it.
Yeah.
And
I was like, if I could just get down there, I've got a support system. And I am extremely fortunate to have people that I didn't even know. And there are
that
people,
you still haven't even met some of those women that were like, we're going to help her get away.
Right.
And I'm going to cry. It was so beautiful, just the support.
Yeah.
From my friends.
Yeah.
And people that some of them you just still haven't met.
I know. I was in shock. And, when I got down here for 2 months, I didn't go anywhere. I didn't want people to know I was here. I didn't want anybody to know where I was.
Yeah.
But it was a shock to my senses for sure. So like all of these people were here to help me, even if I was not even comfortable leaving the house or like leaving my room.
Yeah.
So it was wild. So starting over that way was so impactful, and I felt I made the decision to leave, right? However, I knew it was the right thing to do, and there was no going back. There was no doing something else. There was no, this isn't the right decision for me, but I'm going to, stick with it. It was, I am going to leave. And so it was like a forced, a forced starting over. Right.
Yeah.
In my opinion, just because I had the resources.
You chose to start over.
This is what I'm saying. It was like I went from being forced to start over to now being very intentional about starting over. So it was like a gradual, hey, you lost your sister, you're forced to start over that way. Right. To in February, being very intentional with it. Now, this is an exception to that because I felt like it was both a choice and forced because of some unfortunate things that I had found out within that relationship. I felt like, and of course, being in an abusive situation, it was something where I had no choice.
Some things aren't negotiable.
Some things aren't negotiable.
And you got to go.
And I've got to go.
Right.
However, that's not everybody's position. They can't do that. So in a perfect world, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
I'm forced to leave. Right.
And you can only tell your story. Everybody's got their own.
Right. I want to recognize my, my fantastic privilege to be able to do so. There are millions of men and women out there that do not have the ability to leave. And that does not, my ability to leave does not invalidate your, your means to be able to do so or not. So I want to make sure that's known. And I think that's not talked about enough. So I wanted to make a point. So thank you for allowing me to do so.
Yeah. So you went from going through that ice storm, literally collapsing on our porch, to 2 months later, like finding a job, starting a new life, getting an apartment.
Yeah. I started that process about 2 months in.
Yeah.
I was at a play, which is awesome. I started, getting back in touch with, my performing arts, and now I'm doing that as well. I'm doing content creation, and that has been so much fun. I love to be a natural performer. So, within 2 months, I said, I'm not going to let myself sink in.
Right.
And I need to be able to start my life again. And especially after, going and getting married and getting out of your parents' house. And, then I came back to my safe home base. Right. But I wanted to start my life again. And so I started looking for a job, and 4 months in, I had found a job in the city. So I decided to move away once again. Right now we're in,
which shocked us all.
Yeah.
Because you were traumatized.
Yeah.
And trying to heal, and healing's not always pretty. And it was hard to watch you be so traumatized and honestly not knowing the right way to help you. And it wasn't always graceful on our part sometimes. And you've been so gracious through that. And I just want to thank you for the grace you gave us, for not knowing how to properly help you through that. And man, for being so brave. I'm just so incredibly proud of you.
Thank you. I do have the benefit of you being my mom, so you're going to be proud of me no matter what. But I am proud of myself of making that decision, and it is scary starting over. Every time that I have intentionally starting over, and every time that I've intentionally started over, it had a lot of thought behind it. It wasn't something that I did, in short notice to myself at the very least. But one thing that I think we have all done really well within our family is knowing about mental health, just being conscious of it. Right. So every time that we have, needed to give grace to somebody, we're like, okay, well, I understand that they're going through this right now. They're thinking this and this and this. I need to give them grace. Like with this project that we've been working on for the past 3 days, you and I had been butting heads back and forth so many times. And, we're both very powerful women, very opinionated women. And we speak our minds as well. And so I was like, this is going to be an undertaking, even with how fantastic we get along.
I had a great time, though.
I had the best time. The entire time I was sitting here thinking, like, 3 years from now, I'm going to be like, I really wish I was doing that mural with my mom again. And I think that was very special to be able to do that together, especially for your first resource wall.
Resource wall, yeah.
The first one we got to do together. I think that was very special.
The whole time I was just thinking, I'm so lucky to have this opportunity to create these memories, to spend this time with you.
Yeah. Same.
Like most of the time it was just you and me. There's coaches walking, through the building sometimes.
Oh my God, I love them.
They were so good to us.
Yeah.
But really going through my mind was, this is the hugest blessing. And it's Mother's Day week. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. And so getting to spend time with you this week has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfectly timed.
Yeah, perfectly
timed. And I do like to, as many people do, think that a lot of things in life are perfectly timed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to choose to think so. You have to choose to think, oh, okay, well, I was supposed to go through this right now. This was supposed to happen right now.
I'm supposed to cry on a podcast right now.
I'm supposed to cry on a podcast right now. I was supposed to lose my job right now. I was supposed to have to start over right now.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have gone through this horrible thing so that I could, be better for it in the long run, or somebody else can. And
so you could be here to give somebody hope to get to the other side, right?
Right, yeah.
Because from overcoming your own suicidal thoughts to literally driving through an ice storm, collapsing, rebuilding, and then taking that life that you rebuilt and bringing it back to the ground and building it back up
right.
in an intentional way that brings you joy. You are one of the most resilient people I know, and a very intentional person. And it gives me personally a lot of hope to watch you do that and to watch you thrive and to be able to sit back and go, I'm your mom. I want to give you advice when you ask me for it. But mostly I just like to sit back and say, look at her go. Like, she's got this. And so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am not without making bad decisions. I'm not without fault. I definitely have my.
Well, that's part of the journey.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is learning, trial by fire, or, being thrown into it and seeing what sticks, or learning a lot of lessons. There are lessons that I have yet to learn. Like, I continue to do these bad things for myself time and time again. I have my vices, I just like everyone else struggle with that. And we sat down 2 days ago and I just was crying about the same bad decision I make multiple times a year. I think it's different every time.
And that's going to keep happening until you learn your lesson.
Exactly. And that's part of
until you're ready.
Yeah. And it's part of the escapism. It sends you into a depression, I think. And this bad decision, hilariously, is relationships. And I get myself into these relationships that do not serve my personality and my needs, that make sense for me. Mm-hmm. And that person would be fantastic for somebody else. It's not me, and vice versa. And I find myself, picking somebody that doesn't, mesh with me. And so I'm very intentional with what I do, right? But then when I lead with my heart and find a relationship, I can send myself into a depression, and then I have to, escape from it. So I think in that aspect, I've been able to be really intentional with the escape now. Like, I leave relationships very easily. I will make that decision that I am not being I'm not making smart decisions. I'm not with the right person for me. They're not I'm not the right person for them. Let me make this decision for the both of us. And it's really easy to make that decision. However, when I follow my heart to get there instead of my mind, and this is kind of what, like at the beginning, we're like, well, how do you break that down? You know, what are your interests? How do you get out of, you know, a suicide, you know, mind space? I recognize that I need to become unstuck. I need to back away from the corner, right? And that I've put myself in. And when I do that, I'm really easy to say, hey, you know, enough is enough. I need to change this decision I've made and pivot. However, that is a very I'm losing the word that I was thinking. But that's a decision that was made very logically. There we go. That's what I was thinking. That was a very logical decision. But when I get myself into these situations, like many people do, they follow their heart. So what I need to do to make myself better and to make better decisions going forward is to be more intentional with things like relationships, with heart-based decisions, which, you know, can take a lot of the love out of life at the same time. If you're too intentional and then you make the right decision, you know, or the wrong decision because of that logical intention, that can put you into a suicidal way as well. And that did for me at the very beginning when I started going into therapy and things of that nature, is because I chose a life path for myself and it didn't work out. So being flexible, follow your heart, but be smart.
Is that what you want to leave people with today? What's the biggest thing you want to leave people with today?
I feel like the biggest thing I would want to leave people with today, or if I could impact anybody today, is to be more intentional. I think that's kind of my magic word for today. I feel like I've said it a million times. Is just being intentional, intentional with your health, and put logic behind emotion, because there's so much on the psychology aspect of mental health, the brain chemistry of mental health. I personally, I take prescription medication to be able to help with my brain chemistry so that I can be more balanced and make decisions. And that the, there are things and people out there that believe that our bodily functions are our brain functions, and the way that, that all plays out has no effect on who you are, mentally and personality wise. But that's what it is. Like you said, you have really, you said, Allie, I've watched you, educate yourself on this subject. And that is one thing I will suggest to everyone: educate yourself on mental health, right? But educate yourself in psychology and biology and brain function, so that you can put logic to emotion. And once you've done that, you can really start going into therapy knowing what you're talking about, what you're breaking down, and understanding why. Get yourself out of the corner you've backed yourself in. When you start feeling trapped and you start feeling like you might want to take your own life, know that you probably just feel trapped. And you probably just need to start over. And starting over isn't the end. It's the beginning.
You can keep starting over every day, creating a good life for yourself.
Right. And creating a new history for yourself.
Right. Because you can't do anything. But you can't do anything about anything that's happened before this moment. You can't change it, right, is what I mean. You can't change anything that's happened before this moment, but you can be intentional moving forward.
Yes.
Right. I love that. I just want to thank you for coming on our podcast today and really talking about some really hard topics. I know that's a lot, and I really appreciate it. I have a little gift for you. It's a Beyond the Darkness journal, just to remind you to stay in the light, and that you have made it beyond that darkness, and that's where you need to stay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It has been such an honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to you today, and to be able to talk to all the folks that are out there watching. And I know that we have so much to talk about. So if there's anything that your viewers feel like they'd like to know more about from my story and stories unknown, like I would love to come back if
we'd love to have you back on. Tell people how they can find you, because they're going to want to see your art. They're going to want to see what you're up to. They're going to want to watch your TikToks.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'd like to have a little fun. You know, I make so many different things. I make art. So if you want to come have fun, have a laugh with me, make some, fun, cool things, you can find me on all social media platforms under the handle A as in Apple, Sharp, SHRP, like a pencil, Works, WORKS.
A Sharp Works.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm your host, Jessica Domingos. This is Beyond the Darkness, an Evie Effect podcast. And I just want to remind you that your story belongs here.